So today's presentation is really just to give you a snapshot of Harfang, where we stand and where we've come from, where we are, and hopefully where we're going in the short term this year and next year. The Harfang translates into English as a snowy owl, so that explains our logo, but I like to think it means because we're wise. Anyway, we're a premier exploration company, and at this point loaded up with a ton of, in my view, of blue sky exploration potential in gold, as well as increasing that in lithium as we speak. Our center of gravity has always been James Bay. We did a merger last year, but we've got some projects in northeastern Ontario, but we've got a long history in James Bay. And so let's repeat what Killian just said. It's becoming red hot and is basically ground zero for lithium exploration in Canada. But for all the right reasons, there's 4 deposits already, and there's, Corvette's Patriot Battery is developing a 5th. And I have no doubt, based on the level of exploration for lithium, that we're going to find some more. And I'm cheering for Brunswick as well. They're beside us in a number of areas up there. So just about me, I graduated quite a long time ago, 1982. I'll let you guys do the math on how long I've been around, but I came out of school in Lakehead University, and Hemlo was being discovered just down the road. Some of my classmates were on the discovery, so that's the lure that I have. And I've always been in junior mining, but I think John alluded to it, and I've always been in gold for the most part, but I did get 6 years in good lithium experience, and I actually learned from some of the best in Canada, the Peter Chernys and Dave Truans of the world and Fred Brakes, so hopefully that's going to pay off for Harfang. I will be making forward-looking statements. I'm a geologist, so we're optimistic by nature. So just a little bit brief trip down memory lane to see how we got to where we are. Harfang IPO'd in 2017 on a project called Lac Monarch, which we're actually drilling right now as we speak. Their roots are with Virginia Gold, and Virginia Gold was the ones that they were pioneers in James Bay, and they discovered the Eleanor gold mine and ultimately sold that and the royalty 2 different times for $1 billion. So Harfang has been James Bay focused, and most of the work has been done on a property that was called Serpent. On the other side, LaSalle Exploration was a new company. That's the one that I was president and CEO when it went public. It's got its roots with Lakeshore Gold, and Lakeshore Gold discovered 2 gold mines in the Timmins camp, the West Timmins mine, as well as the down plunge of the Bell Creek mine. And they were sold for $1 billion back in 2016 to Tahoe. Lakeshore had bought the company that I was running at the time, 6 months earlier, which was called Temex. And we had properties in south of Timmins as well as in Timmins, the Hallnor gold mine. We had the Radisson property. When we got listed, it was our main project. And that led to the merger because, well, I'll show you actually in another slide. So I've been president and CEO of Harfang now for almost a year, coming up in April. But the merger was very easy. And again, the headline is that we're a discovery-driven exploration company, and we are. And that's what we love to do. And, the team is deep and has had some great success. But the 6 bullet points down below is why a merger can go seamlessly. And the strategy that we have, of course, is to explore. You can never have enough good projects. You can partner some and then monetize some as well. And we've sort of started to do that on some of the lesser projects that we have. We operate in Quebec. Quebec has got to be the best jurisdiction. It's definitely the best I've worked in, but one of the top ones in the world for the mining ecosystem. With the government and everything else is from top to bottom completely welcoming for exploration and development, which is going to pay off dividends again for James Bay, I think, when some bigger money decides it wants to roll in. We're a technically driven business approach, and what that means is we do all the traditional stuff, and I'm open to artificial intelligence and everything else. I'm going to actually give you an example of some of the methods that we use to target lithium projects, properties that we recently staked. But I love boots on the ground, I love prospecting, and I love geologists that get their nose down on the rocks. Financial position as of our last financials was around $8.2 million. We got about $7 million as we speak. And our commitment to best practices, it's last, but it's definitely not least, we like to engage all the shareholders involved in the company and the surrounding communities that we work in. So nice picture of a leadership team, some gray hairs there. But it's a great team, and it's been seamless since the merger. As far as the market cap goes, shares outstanding is 58 million. Fully diluted shares were at 61.5 million. We've got a good shareholder base, and our market cap currently is around $15 million. So just to summarize, when we merged, you get all these projects, and Harfang had some, and they spent 100% of the time really on the Serpent, and we had spent a lot of time on Radisson, so you get this portfolio. And I looked at this portfolio after the merger and said, what are we going to do with all this stuff? But we decided we'd break it down into four high-grade gold projects. I like high grade. They're all well located. Two in Ontario came over from the contributions from LaSalle. But the rest of the center of gravity was in James Bay, and I said, well, gee, we've got this one project that's got chromium, and it's got cobalt, and this other project has some copper and some nickel. And so given the incentives these days for being in critical and strategic minerals, we broke that into the second category. It's not a lesser category, it's just a second category. And you'll see it's growing. We've added a lot of projects that are specific to lithium. One of the beautiful things about James Bay that I find, I don't know if it's been mentioned, but when you look at Corvette, people were exploring for gold, silver, and copper. And it's going to happen, I think, on our Serpent property, and I'll just show you that in a slide in a second, is that some of these properties have dual potential, so they're overlap potential in a number of areas, and some of our properties actually do have lithium and gold potential. So this property is called Lac Ménard. We don't have a lot of time today, so it's a lot of snapshots, and I'll boom along here because the time's flying. But this was their listing property, and when I look at this, I looked at the geology, and so did the rest of the team at LaSalle. We said, gee, this looks great. This geology is very similar to Timmins. You've got a major structure, you've got splays coming off it, you've got Temiskaming conglomerates, basically all the elements, and hardly any exploration. So it's kind of like looking at Timmins about 100 years ago in our minds. And so we started to do some work on it last summer. We found some showings up to the northeast, new showings up to 17 grams. It's hardly been drilled. There were 17 shallow drill holes. We're actually drilling this right now. We're drilling in and around the Pierre Monzonite, which is on the lower left part of the slide. And we'll be drilling about 18 holes, and we really like this property. There's signs of grade, there's signs of width and everything. So that's one of the catalysts that's hopefully going to drive us forward as we go. And we'll be back there in the summer for sure for another program, because on the right-hand side of the slide over to the east, we know there's been hardly any exploration. We'll hop across the fence into Ontario. Just briefly, 2 slides, and these are the gold projects that came over from LaSalle, and they're no slouches. We're right in mining country, and the one on the top right is Blakelock. It's got 15 kilometers along the Casa Berardi trend. It's also got 100-gram-meter hits on it from previous drilling, and the modeling that we've done shows that the main mine trend that's coming from Casa Berardi hasn't been tested yet. The one in the south is a cyanite. We've heard about cyanites already, and it's just north of Matachewan's Young-Davidson mine, which is mostly in a cyanite. And so when you're in mining country, and we're developing both of these hopefully towards drill programs in the next year or two. This was the Serpent Radisson property that instigated the merger. That little box inside was the Radisson property from LaSalle. It might look small, but it's not. It's actually, you could fit basically 60 million ounces of the Timmins camp inside the Radisson property by itself. And the bigger property was Serpent. So that's really what instigated the merger. But this is a classic James Bay scenario. We drilled a fair amount of holes, and we haven't found the pot of gold yet, but there's over 50 high-grade gold showings that we've found over time on this one, in an area that was mapped as having very low potential for gold. So that's just, take that over onto the lithium space as well, and James Bay is wide open for exploration. So we've taken a pause on this one, and we're just going to reassess it, come up with some new ideas, and then we'll get back at it. One thing that we did do last summer, because I started sensing that the lithium space is really good, is we did actually start prospecting. Spent a couple days looking for some pegmatite dikes, and we found some. We don't know how big they are and which direction they go, but they're in the southeast part of the property there. And the interesting thing is they did return anomalous, just from a couple of days prospecting, anomalous tantalum. We had up to almost 200 ppm and up to almost 1,000 ppm cesium. So from my experience, that gives me optimism that we might be in the right pegmatites. And I know my colleagues from Brunswick have optioned the property just to the south, so we'll certainly be cheering for them as well on the Elron. But that just shows you sort of the level of exploration, which is basically zero for pegmatites in James Bay. And of course, that's my segue into the pegmatite part. We've seen these slides before. James Bay is for all the right reasons, developing into a real hot spot, and it's come along quickly, and I expect it to continue. 4 deposits, and now we've got the Corvette, which looks like it's going to be the biggest one. So it's rapidly developing into a hotspot for lithium, and so we are now, based on the recent staking that we've announced in the last, say, 4 weeks, one of the largest landholders in the region. And we've done this aggressive staking by, first off, our knowledge of the geology of the area, but we also did what's called the spatial regression analysis of the data set. Quebec has another good point about Quebec is it's got the most wonderful database, and we know mines have been found in the database before, but we did that, and, oops, sorry, I have to go back here. I just got to point this out. Just to give you a size, the size of the database was this whole area in here, and it's over 13,400 lake sediment samples went into this area. And so we did spatial regression. What it does is enhances the signal of geochemical anomalies relative to other signals. And we knew from our knowledge of the area that the east part of, or the west part of James Bay has been covered by a sea, and that could affect the raw data results. And it was done, we had hired a guy from the consortium, and they do this type of analysis before, so we had good knowledge and hopefully a competitive advantage. But just to point a few things out, we ran the analysis, and we're quite pleased with what we saw, because some of the deposits, in particular Corvette and down by Ribucci, actually stood out as anomalies in lake sediment. And give you a good example, I guess Corvette, and you look for percentile. You want to get in the higher percentiles. So the anomalies over at Corvette were bumped up from 84 up into 99.7. So I think the end result was, based on what we saw from this, is we said, okay, this gives us confidence that this kind of analysis is working. And if Corvette had not been staked, we would have staked it just based on that. And that's on that. And there's another example of Voisey Bay on the other side. But that's really what drove our staking. And there was, say, 35 samples in the highest 35 samples. There was about 10 of them that were already deposits associated with Ribucci and Corvette in places that were staked. There was some anomalies in areas that you can't stake, and we essentially staked the rest. So that's what was one of the things that guided us in our entry into the James Bay lithium play here. So I guess we're out of time already. If you're at PDAC, please drop by the booth. Our technical team will be there as well. We'd love to chat with you about. But at the end of the day, I think that in all my experience in junior mining, we're loaded up with all kinds of catalysts to really drive this company forward. We've had a good start to this year, and we're drilling right now, and we're going to be drilling some gold projects in the summer. But we're really excited about getting out there and being into the lithium game. I've been there before, and it's a lot of fun when you're actually in it. All right. Thank you.